Good science, by definition, allows for more than one opinion. Otherwise, you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of cult.
If it's not in frame, it doesn't exist.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
Where you been?
Drunk. Wendy? Darling? Light of my life.
What is your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course.
I like death with sex. How about you, Casey? You like sex with death?
Yeah, so fuck up and die.
Thracian? Thraxan? They're
Thraxis.
like a people.
Is it?
Yeah, they're from like Thrice or something.
That's right. That is this. So this is the Cult of Cinema Knowledge podcast. We're actually a history podcast.
Wait, were you reading that off of a cue card? You're like, this is the, and you had to squint and like look real close. Like,
I always forget what podcast we are.
yeah, that's true. That is true. We're running so many different podcasts.
Yeah, I don't even know half the time. This is not our history podcast, so check it at the door, bud.
Right. No, we're talking film. I know nothing about history.
No.
Let's do it.
Not much. This is a little bit of a weird choice, I think, in the middle of these. So we're watching blockbusters. We watched Star Wars last week. Makes sense. Next week, we're probably watching, just spoiler alert, probably watching Lord of the Rings. And then this week we watched 1960s Spartacus, which was a big deal at the time.
And that's what's cool. It's fun to do a movie from a time period that didn't, like, blockbusters didn't exist. Movies were still more sought after, like, as an event.
What's interesting, it's true.
Go in the evening.
The 60s was definitely like the age, the 50s and late 50s, early 60s was like the age of the epic. You know? So
which is
like sets up.
We'll kind of get into it because it's like epics have been around forever since the dawn of film. They've been making movies
as
that
soon
are 3
as
hours plus.
Yeah, but like huge historical sweeping, like, but it's like ever since man dreamt of cinema that they're gonna want to be like, fuck yeah, I can finally tell this story and have this huge fucking battle and all this, you know what I mean? And they have. That's why all the best ones come from that era, though, is because I think it finally started to come. That's the golden age of the epic for me.
No, and I agree. It's when every studio was trying to make their own epic. So
right.
This is,
So those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, because I was talking to my mom and I said, yeah, this week's movie Spartacus, and she's like, oh, I love that movie. And I was like, what? And me and my wife were like, I guarantee you've never seen Spartacus. And she's like, yeah, he kicks him in the hole. And then she was thinking of 300.
yes. This is Spartacus.
Yeah.
this is what they yell.
I am Spartacus. Anyway, so Jordan's got a synopsis for you, for those of you who are not familiar with this story of Spartacus, which is a true story. Well, it's based on a true story, supposedly.
Right. It's like the novel was written by a historian.
Based on a true...
And it's based on like a...
Possibly true legend type.
Oh, a legend, right? A legend's a good term for it. Myth, kind of. But it's based on historically in Rome, there was a
slave
placeholder. Right. A placeholder named Spartacus that represented like a slave army uprising.
So is this the proto story of Jesus? Did they just rip it off? Fucking Christians. Sorry, cut that.
This came, No, I know, yeah.
What podcast am I on?
For all our fundies out there, we love Christ. But,
praise be.
Praise be to him. Praise be to the oysters and the snails.
Yep.
But this apparently takes place before Christianity was big, which is Roman. I'm like. Yeah, we really are not historians at all.
This is like 50 BC or something, right? I swear to God, it was like
I don't know.
It's like 100 years before the rise of Christianity. So,
right, exactly. It's BC.
Again, we're huge historians.
So I'm gonna
BC means before Christ, I think.
Yeah, before Captain Crunch.
That's right.
This is the funniest thing, dude. So Turner Classic Movies. We're getting into it.
Yeah.
Turner Classic Movies they love playing. This is their bread and butter right here. You know,
that makes sense. Yeah.
And on their page, if you Google Turner Classic Movie and you go to their synopsis for this movie, it says the slaves of ancient Rome revolt and are quashed.
Shut up! It's one sentence.
That's it. It's one sentence.
A 3.5 hour long epic.
Yeah, and it's like on Turner Classic. It's like that. That's like this is their thing. So they
That's
do.
their thing.
And they have like better synopsis for other things. And I'm like, is this just? It's in like even the overview. It barely talks about anything. I'm just like, what is going on? Anyways, I thought that was comical because that totally sums up this whole thing. And then I'm gonna read you like 3 sentences that kind of sum things up because we're just gonna talk about.
Dude,
this.
that's almost a sentence per hour. All right, go on.
Yeah. The slave Spartacus survives brutal training as a gladiator and leads a violent revolt against the decadent Roman Republic. As the ambitious, how do you say his name again? Crassus seeks to gain power by crushing Spartacus's uprising. There you go.
Yeah, all right.
There's a lot more. There's a lot more nuance.
There is.
I think it opens. I think
there's a fair amount of political intrigue because honestly, this seems like there's a lot more moving pieces.
Well, dude,
what was his name? Crassus.
Crassus, yeah.
There's a lot more moving pieces to his story and his arc, whereas like Spartacus's side of the story is very straightforward.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean, yeah, I think he's a dynamic character. I really enjoyed the fact that they call him like soft and like a coward. They use like very demeaning terms for him, but he like wears it with pride. It's like.
I definitely specifically, I want to ask you in a sec your first impressions, but just while you got me thinking of it, it's like I specifically thought of the first time when they have to fight to the death. Because I've seen this before and I remember in my head like Spartacus is, especially in this era, it's like the macho man, like he's the head honcho. He's Spartacus. He's the fucking leader. So of course I never crossed my mind that he would lose that battle. And so he did, and he lost it, but then the other guy just didn't kill him because it's like they're both slaves and they don't want to kill each other.
Well, dude, and that
I was pretty surprised by that. I was subverted by that because I was like, oh shit, Spartacus literally is at this guy's whim, like making him look weak, which I think is interesting. It is an interesting dynamic for this character that's supposed to be like this infallible leader, you know what I mean?
And that
which it shows that he's not.
Well, and it shows
he's a person.
The meta of that is the movie. It talks about, Rome wants to like destroy the myth of Spartacus. Hey, Rome, they don't care about the man, who the man is. Yeah. Until later, then Crassus
he just gets it. He's got a personal grudge, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. But he knew the like overarching political like movement. And like the unease it could cause for Rome, just having somebody who took on the Roman army, even though they lost, and that's what's great too. Is even like he's like, I'm not doing this like that. Everyone was like really dynamic in this movie, and Crassus was like, I'm not doing this, because everyone's talking about how it's like they're kissing his butt, and they're like, oh, you're gonna have a glorious victory, and he's like, I'm not doing this for glory, and he's like,
yeah.
I
need to see the empire thrive, and when there's people that start thinking, this type of dissent is poisonous to power. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and it's cool because he's like he wants to be a dictator, and like they're like everyone knows it, and he's like, no, I want to change, not be a dictator. And it's kind of
that's how all dictators fucking start.
I know exactly.
So this was your first time seeing her.
This is my first time. But I knew. So it's funny. I've seen that scene, but I didn't know. So I saw that scene because I knew that he survived. Like of course he survives because it's the beginning of the movie. But I also knew it because I've seen it, and it's for the fact that like that was, a lot of that was influenced for Gladiator, the movie that came out later. Yeah. And I remember there was like press release and stuff around when Gladiator came out, talking about that scene, and
you can definitely see the
parallels are
the parallels for sure. I mean, obviously, there's just not that many Gladiator movies,
True.
Unfortunately, but
But it's anyways, the scene before that when they're sitting and they're like listening and watching the other two group fight, and they're in there, and it's just like all it is just just facial expressions back and forth, and like you can totally like you can read what their emotions, what they mean, and like what they want to accomplish with each other, and it's like it's that like, I'm sorry that I have to kill you, but I'm gonna fight you, to the death. I'm gonna fight you.
I like that they
because
didn't say anything, because it's like a lesser.
It was a lot more powerful. Yeah.
I feel like back then, it's like I do feel like this movie has a lot of those moments, but maybe not enough for me.
Yeah, it still shows its age, for sure.
But it respects its audience in a way to know that it's like it doesn't have to spell it out. You can just let these actors act in this moment of just like feel the tension of them like, about to fight to the death, and what they want to say, and like they're vulnerable, and like part of them are like kind of friends in a way, or at least
the camaraderie is
they're at least like comrades,
Yeah.
So, what was your first? Did you? I'm sure you didn't get through it all in one watch, huh? Like,
no, well, I would have.
Did you?
Just
I split it up. Thank God I had it in
Yeah.
an intermission.
Well, I got to the intermission,
perfect.
and there's like an hour or 40 minutes left after the intermission. And so I watched another like 45 minutes, and so I had like an hour left after. Okay. But it was already encroaching my bedtime. Yeah. And so I was like, I could hang in there, because I was actually pretty intrigued. I liked watching it, and I was mad at Victoria. She was watching it kind of with me passively on the couch, and she kept like, so she would hear a lot of the like, toxic masculinity and machoism and everything that's like blatantly apparent with the dynamic of the time period and the present time being the 60s, and then now continuously, forever and always, something that we need to work on.
But it is interesting seeing it through that lens, though, of like,
but
it's a period piece of this time,
right?
And then but also made of this other time.
Yeah, exactly. So there are some things like things with the relationship dynamics, but I was really mad because she wouldn't pay attention to like actually some of the chess moves that they would do. The whole time I was watching it, I'm like, this is like an episode of Game of Thrones. Like, it's straight up. The whole time she critiqued it, I was like, wait, you're kind of missing the part that you liked about Game of Thrones, where it's just like they're talking about the like pieces that have to move, and like the one that the larger guy, I do not know his name. I'm so bad at it.
He was gonna
Garachus or something.
He was my favorite character, probably. Because he's such a skis-ball. He's such a like a two-faced, like in it for his own needs. Like,
well, and I love
the slaver that trains owns the gladiator school. Is that what you're talking about?
That's he's amazing. So I was gonna say,
that's who I'm talking
in my notes I went, the sweetest slaver that ever existed. No. I love how he's great too. He's a dynamic character because it's like he treats his slaves well for profit. It's clearly all
because it's in his best interest.
Minimum. Yeah, right. And
but
it's
also,
like, it's clearly bare minimum, and he's like, it's not.
I don't trust him 2 seconds because he's got his own interest. Like, spoiler, at the end of the movie when he's leaving with Spartacus' wife and son, you're like, oh, he like is saving them, so he's redeeming himself. But I'm like, dude, the second he's out of the city and an opportunity comes and someone's like, I'll buy them for a high price, he will sell them in an instant. Like, he's a fucking scumbag, but at least he's interesting. He's an interesting character.
He's very interesting, and it ends. It does end like. It's like what is that? Bittersweet. Like, it's so great, and like at least it's hopeful. At least like he's the best person to take her out, because even though if he sells her, at least maybe they'll get out of the city limits. Like maybe they'll get far enough away. And she was like Verenia is like really capable, so I imagine she'd be okay. But
when I made that joke about Christianity earlier, I didn't even fully realize that like Spartacus dies from getting crucified.
Right. Because I think
Spoiler.
Maybe because then Christianity clearly didn't invent
for this like 70-year-old movie.
Crucifixion. I know. Yeah. Whenever we don't preface enough.
I think it's interesting.
It's like this podcast is a spoiler podcast, so.
No, we preface it plenty, but yeah, we're literally reviewing discussing. We're just discussing a movie. We're not trying to get you to. We're trying to get you to watch it if you haven't seen it. But by then you got to be fine with spoilers.
Right. And this is we're it's like a podcast that involves people, so we like to talk about
72 episodes in, and we're finally figuring out what kind of podcast we are.
Yeah. I mean, are you sure we can be a medical podcast?
I do think that's the next step.
But speaking of medical, that guy's arm gets cut off. That's pretty dope.
Dude, I was going to bring that up because it's probably like the best, because I was like, the whole time I was watching it, maybe it's just because I'm a fucking disgusting, grubby, desensitized man, I was just like, oh yeah, give me the gladiator violence.
Yeah, well, dude, and it was pretty violent.
It's got its moments for sure, and it's like, I love that bright red 60s blood. But like they had some pretty good stabby moments, but yeah, dude, when there's that quick cut of them hacking that dude's arm off, I was like, yeah. And I know for a fact that there was shrieks in the theater in 1960 when this released.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's like pretty graphic for the era.
It got me, man. It throws it at you. It was like it cuts like it does that like that L cut where it's like behind a human body, and then the person steps out of the way.
Yeah,
and it like cuts into it,
and like cleaves him.
Yeah, dude, it got me. But do you know what's dope about that? So this movie had a lot of controversy, and I'm sure you probably know some of it. But for everybody out there, this film was not Stanley Kubrick's idea or invention. When Stanley Kubrick was still in his like infancy, because this is technically like his third movie, I believe. I think he did Paths of Glory before this.
Yeah, and then The Killing.
Paths of Glory. I think he did another movie before, but that was like a TV movie or something.
Yeah,
Anyways.
he was just like kind of popping up, and they're like, okay, this guy's.
Right. They called him like he was still a director for hire.
Yeah.
So he wasn't.
He wasn't the auteur that he became known as. A couple films later.
Right. Exactly. So even with like Lolita that he does after this, and like those are still movies that like he wasn't fully, because that's his whole thing, is he's like a control freak. So he like loves to be in control of everything.
Yeah. And it's not even until like Doctor Strangelove. Where it really kicks off, and then like if you want to really get into it, it's like he was pretty restrained in Doctor Strangelove, but then he's off the wagon as soon as he hits Clockwork Orange, and then the rest goes from there. Yeah, and that's what's like kind of interesting to see this movie, because it doesn't feel like a Kubrick film per se. No.
But it definitely has like.
It shows his skill early on, like his confidence as a director to just not overdo it, to kind of trust in like letting shots kind of land, especially, and again, people were much more patient of longer movies back then, but also letting things kind of like have the time to play out, to have the time to develop. Like he has for being like a young director too, it's like he has that confidence that it's just like, that's because it's got the pacing. Though I think you could cut 45 minutes out of this movie. I think you could have. You could have made this movie a cool 240, and it would be just fine. Yeah. No, I definitely feel like that. But I feel like there are some times, like there's a few times where it's a little repetitive on their travel. Yeah. But there's a lot of times where it's like really effective. Goes through, and it's just like whenever they're walking through a camp, and it shows those families that like throughout the years you see them grow. It's like the same set of people throughout the camp. Yeah, I thought that was cool. When he starts collecting his because like Spartacus, he starts liberating other slaved communities and towns and whatever. He's building up his army, and you see like the same characters, and so that impact is there when later in the final battle they're dead, and you're going through and you're seeing their corpse, and it's like it really like got me. Yeah, it was great. I like that like he's liberating all these towns, like not to like he's not trying to overthrow the government. He's just trying to like get everyone back home. Like we're just gonna hire a boat. Well, dude, we're gonna hire a fleet, and we're gonna cross the seas, and we're gonna go be free with back where we came from. It's like what Daenerys did in Game of Thrones. I don't know. We're starting to rewatch Game of Thrones too, so I kind of had that on my mind. Are you? But I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. I really. It's not my. I like Game of Thrones, but it's destroyed. It's ruined for me. It is. No. That's what I said. I was like, we'll start from 4 and end at 7. But anyways,
we're starting to watch it. It's like kind of Daenerys has got that style where it's like you're liberating because it's like he came from that, and he doesn't like he just to see it makes him frustrated. Like I love when like the pirate comes in, and he's like the messenger between the pirate fleet on the coast, and like when he shows up with his slaves, they're like have them like like strip them down and put them in civilian clothes, and they're no longer slaves. They came into our camp, and those the people that his foot soldiers or whatever is like whatever chauffeurs were like given their freedom, and I was like, that's so cool. It's like really fun to see in a movie that
I like that. I like with when he realizes they're screwed, and he's just like they got screwed out of the deal, raising 50 million Cercetis or whatever.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, sorry, the Roman Empire came and like fucked you over it, and he just just casually like he's pissed, but he just is like, no, you need to leave. Just dismisses the guy and is like, I need to just focus on what to do, what's best for me and my people. As he starts war planning, it's like, how do we not get the full brunt of this army the least and be able to make the biggest impact? And then of course they're all killed. But they do a good stand. Like that battle sequence is pretty good.
Yeah, the battle sequence is cool. What I wanted to get back to that the scene where he gets his arm cut off. That is added in. So this film,
oh really?
By the censor board, they cut out that scene, which is funny now, like the context of what we have nowadays. But that super like bisexual innuendo, or kind of the like, what is that like
when he's in the bathhouse or whatever?
The subtext, the subtext. When
he's in the bathhouse, didn't he say clams and snails? You said that earlier.
Well, he says
oysters. Oysters.
Yeah, so he goes, would you prefer oysters? You like their taste? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, and snails too? You would eat those? And he's like, yes. And he's like, but both are so decadent, and why would you want to choose? Yeah. And he's like, it's like it goes really deep. And I remember like all the words they were saying, and like the context of like the guy they used, that actor is like a fucking pretty boy, and like he's very vulnerable. He's like washing him, and it's like his servant, and he's like he's really tender with him, and it just was great. It's such a great scene, and I'm like, oh man, that's so wild how like that's intense for that time period.
I wish there was there was more of that. Oh, it really did. It got cut.
So it got cut for the theatrical release in the 60s, and the arm cut, and the scene where he gets stabbed and he's in the like when the first time they rush the gladiator arena where they're trained. The first time they rush it, he stabs a guy and he's like bleeding out in the pool. Yeah, and I was like those. That was pretty bloody. Like funny because
I remember thinking that was pretty bloody.
Yeah, it was really bloody, and I was like, God, this is like really bloody for the time period. And even just it's straight up like amazing. It was great. The blood's awesome.
That sucks. That sucks. They cut the arm chop because I know I can imagine it. I literally was like in theaters in 1960.
In theaters. They would have gasped, but it wasn't.
Someone would have fainted.
Violent.
Someone would have fainted for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sad because it was like 1991 or something when they remastered it.
That's too bad.
Released it with that, but that dude, it would have like, I know it would have like freaked people out, and but it was still like, it's violent without those scenes. It's pretty violent.
It is pretty intense without it. You know what I mean? And it's pretty like. Doesn't follow like the traditional since it's supposedly based on a true story and everything. It's like somewhat like quote unquote biographical. It doesn't follow like your traditional like story arc and like character arc of like everything you think is gonna happen for this character and growth. It's like there's a lot of people losing where you think they would win. And it's like the struggle, and I think that was kind of unexpected for its time too, a little bit, like especially for that era. You're getting a lot more movies that it's just like have this perfect structure and this perfect outcome. It wasn't until getting into the 60s. I mean, I'm sure I'm wrong. I'm sure there's a lot of other movies, but it's like getting into the 60s where you have more of the like complicated protagonists that are just like not black and white, and there's like they have these losses instead of like these obvious triumphs to overcome. Like it's like up until then it's like, oh no, you have a protagonist that needs to overcome the obstacle, but in this it's like, no, they have an obstacle and they don't overcome it because that's just how fucking it is, and that in itself is like its own character development.
Oh yeah, dude, I loved having like it's like Rome. It's cool how it was like basically two storylines, and then the word of mouth, came through, and it shook Rome, and I just loved all the back and forth between like the Roman whatever house that had to whatever the Senate,
The Senate,
they're
yeah.
talking about how are you frightened, are you scared of him? And he's like, I'm not frightened. I'm like, just because he took 6 legions doesn't mean anything. And it's like, I don't know, all the political drama of it was.
I was surprised how much that was. I think honestly, probably, I don't know if it's my favorite part, maybe, but one of the best parts is near the end, Krashnicius. I totally forget his name already, but the main antagonist guy, he's doing his. Yeah. He's when he becomes into power, he's doing his huge speech to the army, and then it's cuts back and forth between Spartacus doing the speech to his people, and it's you're seeing the faces of these dirty peasants, ex-slaves, that are just enraptured for his cause versus these obedient soldiers that are just have to be, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. That's just the fiery and the duality between the two. And then also that's shown when it goes to the battle. There's the super organized troops of the legionnaires and all that coming to the battle, and it's Spartacus's army is literally just everyone just rush them.
Yeah, they just rush them. Group.
Throw some fire at them and then rush them.
I think it's cool too. Without the, Spartacus is a really good battle strategic, strategist or whatever. He again, he knew they're gonna bring, there'll be the army from Rome and then the other army from the bottom of Italy that's coming around. And so, when they get there to the battle, and the battle's going, and they're putting up a good fight against the Romans that come out and, the red cloaks and everything. They're putting up a good fight, and then that other army comes to the side, and it's, the impressing force, and you kind of just, they're going to lose. It, comes down, and, that defeats there. But then the scene that comes after, which is, the most iconic scene of this whole movie, everyone knows the term, I'm Spartacus. Yeah. It fucking, dude, I didn't realize how epic it is when that happens. How there's a pretty large group, and they're talking about we'll spare your lives. You were slaves you were before, and slaves you will be, but you will keep your life if we just need one man needs to be crucified, and it's Spartacus, and everyone stands up, and then Kirk Douglas cries, and it's really fucking dope. It's a really cool shot too.
It's great because he goes to stand, and they stand with him, and everyone
they stand with everyone's
does the I'm Spartacus.
And then they fucking litter the world with their bodies. That's so brutal too. Yeah. I'm this movie's got a lot of brutality in it. I mean, I guess it's Gone with the Wind was
it's the wrong.
That's got a large death toll in it as a film, and it's movies before it too. But still, I thought man, it had a special viciousness to it, And
there's crucified people as far as the eye could see. You know what I mean? Just along the road.
And it's cool for the context for
which again is Douglas. They do that in Game of Thrones too. So
right. That's what. Yeah. I mean, clearly George R. R. Martin.
Yeah, he's a student of history for sure.
Yeah. But anyhow, it's they have to walk. They're the last two, that have to march with it and watch everyone get crucified.
That's what, honestly, I feel I got bummed by that because I remember this movie. So I've seen it once, back in that era of the, the grounded era.
That one 4-year span where you watched every movie ever made.
I watched so many fucking movies back then. I mean, I still feel I watch a fair amount, but man, compared to back then, it was that's all I did with my time.
They're last year of high
sleep,
school,
eat, jack off, and watch movies. I was that's it. Sometimes multiple at once, but it's. I remember it. I thought it ended on that I'm Spartacus scene, and then he's we're gonna fucking crucify everyone, and then they crucify everyone, and then because that pretty much is how it ends anyway. But then there's there's a full 40 minutes.
Maybe 20 minutes.
Well, the full. No, it's 40 minutes.
It is 40,
they have a full because it's the main two guys, Spartacus and his friend. They end up being the last two people, and then they have the fight to the death, and then the survivor gets crucified in Spartacus. And but it still ends with them getting crucified, and then like Spartacus's wife being like, "This is your son. He's free."
Oh, dude. That is, I mean, that's
And I thought
like,
that's how it ended. I don't remember those 40 minutes because you honestly could cut those 40 minutes out, and it'd be the same.
Yeah, I do feel like there was a lot of them. I appreciate it though because they do have that one
It
really
does
nice
have a
conversation.
good resolution between the two men about that. I don't like giving the main Crassus. I don't like giving him the satisfaction of he probably knows who Spartacus is now.
Well, no, dude. I think they did a fantastic job. Oh, yeah. So at the end of the duel,
I like the idea where it's like, okay, like they all just get crucified, and he goes to his grave, not knowing who Spartacus is, and being like, did I get him? Did I not?
But technically, he still doesn't know. He convinces himself. He's like, I know in my heart, even though it's.
I don't know how he couldn't look at fucking Kirk Douglas's massive chin dimple and not be like, I can never forget that face.
Kurt Douglas looks like a big, like a square block of marble. Like
Dude,
his face is like his face literally has like planes. Like it is angular. As fuck. Dude.
It boggles my mind because I'm watching this movie and I'm like, this movie came out in 1960. Kirk Douglas died like 2 years ago.
Is that wild, dude?
2020.
He died at 103.
Seriously? Holy shit. I knew he was old because I was like watching this movie and I'm like,
is his son even alive? Is Michael Douglas even alive?
Barely. Michael Douglas is old as shit too.
Yeah.
But I'm watching this movie and I'm like, this movie came out in 1960 and he swear to God, he's like 50 years old in it. Like,
yeah.
Like he's just this haggard, dimple chin man.
I mean, but I think he's like the perfect like face for this, like
he's far too old. He's far too old. He's like, I just been being a slave, and then he's just like.
But I think it works really well. It's got that like, because that's something that we've talked about before in the past, and like I love like film history and watching like movies from like the 20s, where people like Kirk Douglas comes from this era where they're not like there was no like glamour star. Like I mean there is, you know, in the 60s there are now, and like the 50s really popularized that, but it was just kind of like stunt folk or people who liked theater, you know, and then even then it was like people getting into film. It was such a like new experience that like I love the beauty standard was different. The like
it was
Kirk
different.
Douglas, like he fits even if you look at all the men, like the one dude, is it John Gavin or maybe Tony Curtis? Tony Curtis is like, he's like the pretty boy. He's like, you know, the soft faced, like really like piercing eyes, pretty boy. And then Kirk Douglas is like, he doesn't have that face, but then when you look at him like in other movies and stuff, he is a little more glamorous. I love the beauty standards were so different then.
I know, but they still had like these macho leading men because it was like Kirk Douglas and then like Charlton Heston or something. Like part of my brain thought Charlton Heston, like remembering back, I was like, oh yes, Charlton Heston is Spartacus, and then he's not. I feel like in an alternate reality he was.
Well, dude, the whole time I kept thinking this was Michael Douglas. I'm like, why didn't Michael Douglas redo this movie? Why doesn't he make this movie? They look like. Then at first I was like, is Kirk Douglas's
Michael
dad?
Douglas doesn't have the fucking moon crater chin. He doesn't.
No.
Like, he's got a little something, but
he's got the smile and like the forehead and everything. And
it's definitely, they definitely look like Michael. I like Michael Douglas, man. But I was thinking about him when The Game is like his best movie, probably.
Right, yeah.
Personally.
Right.
Personally.
Also, I wanted to mention another fun fact that you might have known. So earlier I was talking about how this movie has gone through, went through a lot of like production issues, and the cinematographer for this, Russell Meddy, he won the Academy Award. But he's so salty because he left production. So they shot maybe 20% of this movie with Russell Meddy, and then when Kubrick is like a control freak. He would just berate him constantly until Kubrick just physically shot the movie himself.
Oh, really?
And so
that makes sense because Kubrick was a photographer first.
Right, exactly, and that's and so he took over cinematography, and it like Russell Meddy asked to be taken off the credits. He was like, I don't want to be part of this production, and so did Kubrick. Kubrick was like, fuck this, I don't want to be part of this production, and which kind of like, all right, man, you're being a drama queen, but it's like,
I mean, he's sort of Kubrick is a genius, but he's a
tortured genius.
Yeah, he
tortures other people.
A doucher kind of drama queen for sure. Like, control freak. Like, he's got all those things.
There's some times where I'm like, so what's beautiful about these kind of old school epics is like they used human beings. Every single person you see moving on set is a real human being.
And that's always impressive. Like seeing those huge, massive wide shots, and they're like, there's like over 1,000 people in this shot. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like easy, you know, and
several thousand.
Yeah, and you've got everyone moving, but there's some shots where they're being nomadic, and like I see people like falling, and like there's like part where a guy is like carrying a kid and he like falls in the water with the kid, and they're like flopping around in the water, and I'm like I bet you Kubrick was just like, keep rolling.
Yeah,
keep,
he seriously hurt.
Water, and he's like,
yeah, he seriously hurt.
Like there's times where like Kurt Douglas is like getting his ass kicked, and like I can see like people in like the foreground getting like really hurt, and I'm like, I know for a fact Kubrick was just
that baby that they buried actually died on set.
Yeah,
Kubrick's like, use it, we're digging a grave. Yeah. You're the new parents now.
That seems cool, but that's all kind of another part of like there is a lot of travel.
That's a good moment a small moment that shows without telling the human toll of like this journey too, that is just like, you know, they're growing, they're kind of building a community, there's good, they're training, there's laughs, but there's also loss, you know what I mean? Which it does feel like someone wrote a paragraph of like, and then they had a journey, there was laughs and there was also loss. And then they're like, okay, let's film that, and let's just have it be 25 minutes unnecessarily.
Right.
They
literally go from Baby Grave to like, and I think, you know, to show the like time period, because it's like to show the timeline to see years pass. But it's like Baby Grave to like fun barbecue. Like everyone's like, you know, they're like kids are like goofing around the barbecue pit.
I just want a meme now or something of just Kubrick just being an asshole on set. Just like when they're spraying that kid with the goat milk, they're just like, get him again, spray him in the face.
No, they're like, Kubrick, this child's allergic to goat milk, and he's like, spray him more.
Get him in the eyes.
I mean, it's like there's no
the kid's like crying, and the old lady's like, it's blasted.
Right. There's no rules or regulations. That kid doesn't need. So like nowadays, it's like you have to have like 2 kids, and they only work for like 15 minutes. And it's like the kid has to like have a tutor on set.
No, they probably chained him to the ground, and he's an actual orphan that they just bought.
Yeah. Like, right? He's just a studio kid. He just lives on the lot. They feed him
in a dog crate.
He eats off Crafty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Roams the studios.
But all this movie, I think we've been talking pretty positive about this movie, and I do enjoy it overall. But I feel like it's just short of hitting that. Like I wrote in my letterbox review that somehow it feels kind of soulless to me. And I don't know if that's totally fair. Like I feel kind of bad because it's like there is a lot of heart, and I think there's a lot of interesting political.
Explain yourself.
I'm trying.
Why would you say that? No, I totally see what you mean. I think there is something about narratives in older films where maybe we have history to like fill in the gaps now, and so like storytelling now is so much more dynamic, and like the ability to like tell like a more nuanced story.
I guess,
you know,
the whole time I think that it was just like, even though there is a lot of back and forth, I do think Spartacus as a character is fine. I think Kirk Douglas is like okay. I do think that his angle is, you know, I like them breaking out, him in the gladiator school, them breaking out. I do think that like the most interesting stuff came from like the political intrigue between the Romans and like his rise of trying to like do like the like you said, like the shifts in power to try and rise to the thing of power, and then the sniveling fucking slaver guy. But it's like so many things in this movie kept it from being like, I kept thinking about, and this is kind of jumping ahead, but if you liked this, watch this. I kept thinking about two other movies that I thought did a similar thing, but did it like just way better, like way more impactful. And obviously the first one comes to mind is Lawrence of Arabia, which we watched not long ago. And I feel like that movie had a way more emotional core, or at least like a more, morally complex protagonist, especially for the era, that made the struggle, because it's like, it made the struggle more intimate. So it's like in Lawrence of Arabia, it's like Lawrence's struggle combined with this huge geopolitical war, these powers of these factions. But in this, it's like Spartacus is a symbol for the entire movement, and he feels like that. Like he does feel like a man, sort of, but he mostly feels like the idea of a man that is supposed to be like this leader to this movement. Like, obviously there are human moments like we talked about, and him earlier being like, I'm not an animal, I don't have sex just because you tell me to, and then he falls in love with her and everything anyway. But it's like,
it's
it doesn't have,
there's as much consent as you can have in BC.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know, something like Lawrence of Arabia I feel like was just way more of a complicated movie, but also thinking about War and Peace, and that movie seemed shorter.
I wanted to bring up War and Peace kind of maybe later, but it's like War and Peace is like on a completely different level. So
War and Peace is
one day out there in the world we'll do our bonus episode. Wait. But I don't know though. I might have to.
I'd have to rewatch it.
I mean, honestly,
I feel like I could skip one of the sections of War and Peace and still be okay.
Yeah, right.
The section, I forget her name, but that one section with the gal, like there's like a good hour and a half of War and Peace that's like, it's important.
So you can watch. So you want to watch 6.5 hours of a movie, or I guess it would be 5.5 hours. But anyways, it's like War and Peace. I think with Lawrence of Arabia, I understand what you're saying, and I agree like wholeheartedly. But I think it's because they focused. It's like in Spartacus, like you said, the idea of a man, it's greater, and so it's kind of like they focus on him and who he is in his life, but they play him so subtle. He doesn't really like talk with people. You don't see him like actually humanizing himself. They focus on a lot of different people in this movie compared to, I think in Lawrence of Arabia, there's like it's pretty cut. It's like it's
pretty much focused on Lawrence.
On Lawrence. Yeah, like the myth that he creates and stuff, and it's like the relationships that he has. There's a vast amount of people in that movie, and you get to know a lot of people, but it's mainly through conversation. Where in Spartacus, you get to know people by kind of like through their actions and like who they, you get like intimate moments with each character in this movie, which maybe kind of divides your attention.
I think
maybe that's where you're saying. I could see what you're saying.
Quite possibly, it does definitely seem like, and I just think that Kirk Douglas's performance was, though it had its moments, was not as like, complex and nuanced as Peter O'Toole's and Lawrence of Arabia, and so. But it's hard to compare a movie to Lawrence of Arabia because I think Lawrence of Arabia is a masterpiece. I really, really liked it, and it's sat with me better with time.
That's what I'm gonna say. Same here. I remember Lawrence of Arabia like this. Spartacus, I'll probably remember a few of the main points. I'll remember
every time I watch like a movie that's set in like this Roman era because it's like the set dressing was really cool.
Well, it makes me want to watch Gladiator again because Gladiator is a movie where I'm like that. I remember watching Gladiator in like, didn't that come out in like 2000 or something?
Yeah,
anyways,
2000,
like 20 years ago. Yeah. And so it's like I remember watching it in theaters and being like, wow, this is like super intimate. And so I don't know
Gladiator. I watched Gladiator like 5-6 years ago, and I remember being like, yeah, this is all right. But I want to watch it again too because it's got a lot of really cool moments too, and Joaquin Phoenix obviously crushes it. Obviously. But shoot, what was I gonna say? For Gladiator. Oh, you know what movie it made me want to watch? Is Hail Caesar by the Coen brothers.
I haven't seen that yet, and
really?
I want to though, because it's supposed to be like they're making a period piece.
They're they're
doesn't it
making
take
this
place-
movie.
Is it? Oh, is it legitimately they're making
No,
Spartacus?
but
And
it
then-
pretty much is though.
Yeah, and so I see, but it's supposed to be. It's a period piece set in the '60s with a dude making a movie, a biblical movie
about
right? Or
about
that
the
kinda-
Roman Empire. It's
the
a
Roman
Roman
Empire,
movie.
yeah.
And
That's
so
cool.
it's
Coen
like I
Brothers
like
are
to
great.
imagine that's what's like it's like the communists and in the '60s. It's like the
Yeah.
communists in Hollywood and stuff. That movie's pretty fun, but that's what it reminded me of the whole time. Where it's just like, Kirk. I want to say Kirk.
I know,
Michael Kirk Douglas.
I know. I keep. Well, I'm like,
He's
Dirk
like
Dizzle.
Sean Connery's character in that movie, where he just kind of shows up to set. Is the vibe? I kept thinking about it, like, but he's like the dumber version of it in Hell Caesar. You should watch Hell Caesar.
Okay, yeah.
Come on,
I'll
you
check
like
it out.
Coen. You like
It-
Coen Brothers more than
this-
me.
I do. Oh yeah, it's true.
Probably.
I kept. Yeah, for sure. I kept thinking of a lot. It's like a lot of times with that, like you're talking about the war, like when they're talking to their like troops and it cuts between, and it's like it gave me like I'm like it's like Independence Day. Like there's so many movies. I'm like this is a very like influential movie. Without just like drawing from its context and its like its staging and its cinematography, it like definitely is iconic. But I can tell you one thing about this movie that I am like rarely do I watch a movie, especially like a studio American Hollywood, film from the 60s and 50s, 60s, is the music is so generic.
So
Holy
generic.
shit. They have an orchestra sitting in there. They go, this is the exciting part, exciting orchestra music. This is the solemn part, solemn, orchestra music. This is the kind of silly romance part. And it's just like, I wish this had like a more, I feel like the music would elevate this even more, and probably, because it's like
100%.
Lawrence Arabia had some dope music.
Oh, yeah.
Like there are parts when they're walking through the mountainscape, and it's like there's like the throat singing going on, and
Yeah.
it's like the score in that is like really memorable and really beautiful. And so I'm kind of like,
I
the
agree
whole
with
time I was
that.
watching this, I was like, ugh.
Movie I was
that's my-
thinking of that like we watched recently. That's a '60s movie that had a pretty banging score that was unique and pretty dynamic. That I was like, man, that's what this movie needs. I was thinking about Planet of the Apes. It's
Yeah.
like Planet of the Apes had like that really cool like
It
for a
was
lot of the
like
moments
horror.
like the percussion like scary intense
Yeah,
moments.
I think that's what it is. They went old Hollywood with this, where it's like they went like
It
straight
feels like a divide, yeah. It feels
orchestra.
like a-
They weren't trying to do music of the times, because that's what like Planet of the Apes is like, straight up like cool like jazz music and shit that was coming out around then. And it's like they were like, no, let's slip that into this movie and kind of make it disjointed, because there's times in Planet of the Apes that like the music's creepy and like it really
Yeah.
does it's a lot more dynamic, and like
Yeah.
I know that was pretty much my biggest gripe about this movie.
I do think that if this movie had a little bit more of a engaging score, because these days I'm noticing scores, like I've always kind of noticed scores obviously, but like these days I'm noticing like if a score is generic, it will fucking break it for me. Like I will be watching a movie and I'll be like, man, this sucks that the score is so basic.
Right.
Like
Dude.
this scene, like quit telling me how to
Yeah.
fill music. Like
Yeah.
so
No.
in the most boring way possible. Like this is sad, feel sad. I'm like, I don't need you to tell me to feel sad with your fucking violin, okay? Like if you do it interesting and right, then sure. But whoops.
Well,
but it's
and that-
always something.
And that's with like I think Kubrick later on in his life. So do you remember what year and what month we did for Kubrick? So we out there, everybody out in the podcast world, we did a whole month genre on Stanley Kubrick himself.
We only
watched
did Kubrick.
only Kubrick movies. So we watched a bunch of Kubrick films. And so it's actually, I'm like kind of happy to watch this one, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to kind of like get through his whole filmography.
Same, yeah. Because I've almost watched all of it. I've not seen Paths of Glory, and I've not seen Lolita, and that's pretty much it. Because we did.
Wait, I thought we watched Lolita.
No, we didn't.
Oh, did I just watched it on my own then.
did.
I couldn't see, that's the thing. I'm like, I have to go look back at our archives and
Right?
see.
Because we watched. God, I don't even remember for sure what we watched. Because we watched The Killing. We watched Clockwork Orange. We watched
Full Metal. We watched
Full Metal Jacket.
That's for sure.
What else? I don't even remember what else.
It
No,
wasn't The Shining.
no, it wasn't Eyes Wide Shut. It wasn't. Dude, no, I don't even know.
Are you sure it wasn't Lolita?
I've never seen Lolita, so it couldn't have been.
You're okay.
We're gonna have to go back.
I'm almost like.
It was probably it was Doctor Strangelove.
Oh, you're right. Oh
it
my
was
gosh, you're
Dr.
right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, yeah, it was Doctor Strangelove.
Which
you're
Dr.
you're having
Strangelove
some-
is
you're talking about the water. Yeah.
one of my favorite movies of all time. I fucking
It's
love it.
amazing. Yeah, that movie's amazing. And so it's like
That reminds me.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is a random tidbit.
Just-
Look what Pablo got me for my birthday. This is the script for Doctor
Oh,
Strangelove.
so Levi's holding up a printed out copy of Doctor Strangelove.
That's fun.
Pablo gave that to you. That is a very sweet gesture, Pablo.
He's a pretty good gift giver. He does well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In my notes, all I have is not a fan of the music, but a huge fan of them sets.
Dude, them sets.
They were good.
Those,
it was epic.
Those the sets were great. The costumes were great. It was a lot of fun with all the classic. Like it feels like a classic Roman movie, like that you would expect, and that's why I kept thinking of Hell Caesar because it feels like that. But man, those matte painting backgrounds for when they're in the exteriors, in like on the traveling, like it's so obvious that it's a matte painting background. But it's beautiful that I didn't even care. I loved it.
No, it looks the lighting's done so well. Like when he finds Beryllium or whatever again in the woods, that set is so rich and beautiful, and like the lighting in that is so good. I was just like God, this movie
you
really,
can tell that
moments.
the background is like 20 feet behind her, like on a flat wall, kind of.
Right.
But it's like it looks like a sweet Renaissance painting or something. Like it looks really good.
No, there was definitely,
and I didn't mind it at all.
Framing.
I liked it.
Yeah. There was some sick ass dude. Some of the cuts that he would do, so he would pan between scenes, and it would be like, there's like, oh my god, the one part. So it's like when you first meet Spartacus, he's chained. Do you want to look for you should look for some Reddits or something. But,
I'm pulling that up.
Spartacus is like chained to the rock when they first meet him, and I love how like the slavers like, let me look at his teeth, and they're like, oh, look at his muscular structure is great. But anyways, he's Jesus on the cross,
like,
and there's Spartacus. Yeah. I love that. What they say? They said like he just veined somebody, or God, what was the term that he used? He just
what was it? It was good.
Oh crap! It was a great term for like biting some dude's Achilles tendon, ripping it out. But oh damn it! But then there's a scene where they're cutting through all the like corpses and everything, and one of the like Roman staffs that has a fist on the top and like chain, it's like laying on the rocks. They come through and it's like laying, and it looks similar to like sprawled out like when he was laying there. And I don't know if that was super intentional, but that was like totally this like subtext I took from it. And like
that's interesting.
I don't know.
Who's the slave now?
Well, kind of right. Yeah, I mean it's
Roman Empire.
I love it. And I love, dude, the one part when they're in the tents and you see all the cavalry and everything behind them, and it's that like, it's like green screen, projected green screen or whatever. Like that film technology is so cool. I love that you can see it now, but it's not jarring. It doesn't take you out of it.
No, it's not dated in the way we talked about this a little bit on Star Wars. It's these, that these practical ways that they use to make these, like, that they're not real, but since they're actual physical things most of the time.
It's part of the theater. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's like it fits tonally with the movie, then the dated CG, like we were talking about, ruined Star Wars. Essentially ruined the whole fucking movie. But it's I don't know, it's like it's charming and it works really well in the aesthetic. It doesn't stand out, and it does feel very theater, which I really appreciated. So I got a couple Reddits.
Yeah, let's hear them.
So Good Robot 868 says, okay, so I'm Spartacus. To which Joshilo says, I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
And then Significant Mud 912 says, I am Spartacus.
I am Spartacus.
Leave72 says, I am Spartacus. So that's the Reddits for you.
Those are all the Reddits?
Yeah.
Okay, that's actually beautiful. That's amazing. That's all the Reddits should be for Spartacus. Is I'm Spartacus.
It's solidarity, baby.
Yeah.
It is.
That's
so
great.
I am curious. I've been waiting with bated breath this whole time.
I know.
For a money minute.
You want to know how fat the bank was here.
I do. I'm curious because this is one of those movies, you know.
Yeah. Oh.
Let me pull up, and while you do that, I'll pull up Travis. Did Travis leave a thing?
Wait a minute. Yeah, Travis left one here. Let me see if I can find it. It's being all weird on that one.
Just guess. I'm just kidding.
There we go. There we go. No. I just had to make sure it was being. So I get them from like either Box Office Mojo or like IMDb or.
And every time we go back to like,
and
there's after a
this-
certain era, it's hard to calculate because it's like they suck at taking records like that. It's
Yeah.
like, and money comes from all these different places, plus inflation, blah blah blah. You know.
Right. But yeah, the one that I have, it was $12 million for production, which is like pretty low for what I
It's
expected.
pretty low, but it's still
Like-
significant for the '60s.
Yeah.
But
But,
for a big epic like this, I would have thought closer to like 40 million or something. Because 12 million in today's what? Probably close to 50 million.
Right.
Maybe
yeah.
more.
But see, in that case, it was 12 million, and it grossed 60 million.
Nice.
So definitely, it had its turnover. Cause see, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, Planet of the Apes, that was 5.8 million, and at box office 32. So it's like, yeah,
Oof.
you're playing around with those numbers.
God damn. No, inflation. I'm way off, dude. So just so I don't.
Oh.
So $12 million, according to this website, anyway, the inflation. So $12 million in 1960 is equivalent purchasing power to $118 million now.
Oh, damn.
Which means, so essentially,
$60 million,
$100 million movie, but a $60 million movie, that's like fucking, it's like almost $1 billion, bud.
Right.
Anyway, this is a math podcast now, which, holy shit, I'm never allowed to do a math podcast. I'm so terrible.
Oh my god, that would be a good bonus episode. Is we need to do a podcast. We need to do a podcast on everything. So we'll do we'll do our like political podcast. We'll do our math podcast. We'll do our like health and nutrition podcast, our racial podcast.
Can we please
good
do a
things.
racial podcast? That's what I want to do.
Yeah, all the good things that people want to hear from two white guys.
Yeah, exactly. Our math podcast would be like 5 minutes long. I'd be like, okay, that's all the math I know. I could break a 20 for you in a couple different ways, and that's about it.
Paragatham's theorem, dude. I could give you that right now.
Excuse
Give
me.
you that down.
All right, but all right.
Yeah, we're getting.
But
real drunk on the sauce.
Bragathan, okay.
Yeah, Paragatham's.
All right.
Can I hear from-
I got Travis's voicemail here, okay, bud?
Please God, let me hear from Travis.
I'm gonna play it, and hopefully you can hear it. But it looks like you've already opened it, so hopefully you know it.
I know I read the shitty transcript, so hopefully I can hear it.
All right, let's see.
Hey guys, I know you're both fans of long movies, and I think this is possibly the longest movie I've ever watched. But I have to admit it took me 3 sittings to complete it. After finishing Spartacus, I feel better for doing so, as if I've accomplished something. I'd like to point out the iconic scene when Spartacus and what was left of his army were captured. Crassus offers everyone to go back to a life of slavery if Spartacus is identified. That's when one by one they say, "I am Spartacus." To me, this scene is so important and impactful that it should have been longer. I know that sounds funny based on the length of the film, but by doing this act of defiance, they were all crucified, which we see at the end was a brutal way to die. My question for you two is, during the movie there was an intermission. I've seen this in theaters in different countries, which I assumed were to promote concession sales, but I've never seen it at home. Is this normal for longer movies of that era? Thanks.
Thanks, Travis.
Nice, dude. Thank you.
100%. Intermissions used to be like a part of life.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say intermissions were only. That's what's so funny is like the 3-hour movie. It was kind of a standard.
Yeah,
like
intermissions are like a given because all movies, like people got to piss, man, and it's like, and
Right.
God, I wish intermissions were still a thing on any movie over 2
Yeah.
hours. Like, give me an intermission, man.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. But I think it's fun. Do you know who popularized the 1.5-hour movie, the 90-minute movie?
That son of a bitch, who?
Someone who has been in the film industry forever and has made movies over 1.5 hours, clearly. But Hitchcock was always Hitchcock always expressed that you should be able to tell a story in 90 minutes.
That's fair. I like myself a tight 90-minute movie too. You know what I mean?
And I was actually thinking that'd be a fun genre, is do movies that are only 90 minutes or less.
They have a whole section on Netflix that's 90-minute movies.
90-minute movies, yeah. I'm like,
we
that'd
should
be kind
do
of fun.
that. Yeah, we should do that.
Because it's like we've been doing epics. We did like epics a few.
We did a full
months
epic
ago.
month. That's when we watched
Yeah.
all of those.
But
all those.
I feel like we've been doing a lot of movies that are like 2 hour plus, and I agree. And I
We're
think
going
Travis
to continue with next week's movie. Is probably for like 3 hours.
I think right, exactly. Yeah, of course, Lord of the Rings. So Travis, you don't feel bad for taking breaks. I actually love watching, like, if it's 2 hours plus, I'll easily watch the first and second act, or I'll watch like at least like get into the second act and stop and take a breather. It helps for like retention, and it helps, like, I don't begrudge a film for its length if I have to, like, if I don't take a break.
That's the thing. I'm coming around on it because I used to be the exact opposite. I used to be like, if you can't watch it in one sitting, then it's gonna like ruin my life, and I'm not gonna want to finish it. Like, and I still, I know, I am.
Film snob at times, dude.
I'm like, I need to fully, I'm not going to look at half a painting and then walk away and look at the rest of the painting the next day. This is art, sir. This is art.
God.
That's how I used to think.
I know. Yeah, you're closed-minded self.
Still, to this day, I have a hard time stopping like an episode of a TV show. If it's under an hour, I'm going to watch the whole thing. I have to. If I stop an episode of a show, I'm going to get really irritated watching in segments. However, especially long movies, I do think that having that room to breathe, especially with the intermission, like I watched this movie in 2 parts during the intermission, and that was because it's like it's giving you permission to know that, okay, this is a good scene, to where it's like this is an act change, where it's like I don't want to leave a movie where in the middle of a scene not knowing if the next scene is going to have so much context to the previous scene that it's like in the pacing, like I feel like it could ruin the pacing, so I get scared. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't want to like leave a movie when it's like the one scene flows to the next, so I don't know when to quit, so I just watch the whole fucking thing. And in intermission, or there's something similar, like a good act break to a change to a different location, which old big movies usually have, gives me a good, okay, this is a good stopping point. Let me put a pin in it, because I have a very busy life now. I'll come back to it and finish it tomorrow, because I never used to think this way till I had a kid, which now I'm like, I gotta watch an hour here, watch an hour there occasionally, especially because Mary doesn't want to watch fucking Spartacus with me. Go figure.
Right. Well, dude, what?
So I've come around.
No, and I'm proud of you, and I think that's like, I totally like agree with what you're saying, because there's times when you just have to pause, and it kind of feels like unwarranted.
I cannot pause in the middle of a scene though. Like if I pause,
no.
In the middle of a scene, my wife does it all the time. Like she'll turn something off. Like, okay, we're changing. I'm like, we're in the middle of a scene. You need to at least finish the scene. What the fuck?
At least cut to like a wide, and then they're just like anything for a minute. But what film have you seen in theaters with an intermission? Because it's not popular now in our time period. It wasn't popular. It died out in the 80s when they started making just half an hour and a half, films.
I think the only one I've seen with an intermission, and I might even be tripping, is Hateful Eight.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
So Hateful Eight, it had like a program, and we went in, and it was like, dude, that was a fantastic experience. And then had the
I'm jealous because you guys got to see it on 70.
Yep, we saw it on 70, and this movie was shot on 70, Spartacus, and I'm like, God, I wish, So 70 is like the size of the film.
For anyone who doesn't know what the fuck we're talking about.
For anybody out there in the world, with
standards
used to be shot on film.
Yeah, I don't. So let me explain to you what this film thing is. Right?
what film does. But it used to be
35 millimeters is the standard.
35 standard for Hollywood films. Like for like studio films, 35 is it, and then 70 would be like your epics. It's a larger frame. You get more texture.
It's the IMAX equivalent to the 20th century.
Yes. right, exactly. That's a good comparison. Yeah, it is essentially the film IMAX, and so and movie theaters had to be equipped to present 70 millimeter because took a whole different projector and a whole different aspect ratio.
Yeah, and big boy canisters.
right. And canisters. It was so, and it's like you would see the film, like the screen is like bent or it's like concaved, so it's like you have to like get the full scope, and you don't get that on like I'm just at home on my TV, and I could tell there's some shots where I'm like, oh, that would have been so.
I would
rich
love to see this movie on the big screen, but I know for a fact if they ever re-released it, it'd be in some shitty theater, like some shitty small theater, because it's not Top Gun Maverick, so nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah.
But I would like seeing. They should do like Turner Classic Movies, like you said.
Yeah.
That's their bread and butter. They should do a run because they do classic movies all the time. They show up at Cinemark. I saw Double Indemnity in theaters that way. Amazing.
Oh, cool.
They should do a run on like epic movies. Like I would love to see all these big epic movies because David said, shout out to David, go listen to the Cinema Ramble. He watched. Remember, he was talking a couple Cinema Rambles ago. He watched War and Peace in theaters, and they had a huge intermission. There was a whole dinner. Is what he was saying. They had and Travis, if you think this movie's long, which it is pretty long, this movie's 3.5 hours long, but War and Peace is like 7 fucking hours.
It's like 7 hours and 2 minutes, like exact, and it's like it's
worth it though. It's so good.
It's like
an experience.
I mean, it's like it's so dumb. It's like it's probably like
it's
the
epic.
most epic. It's the most epic movie I've ever seen in my life.
It
you
is.
know, like
but I mean, of course it is.
But it's like that's a whole different podcast. So anyhow, Spartacus was
the way it's shot.
fantastic.
That movie's insane.
The movie is just
very good.
It's epic, and the fact that like I love that it would play. Well, some theaters would break it up. So that's what's cool too is like there is no like complete standard for how films are presented in theaters, and I think with a movie like this, we break away in Hollywood. Really, in the 40s is kind of when like, you know, the big like cinema boom after the war and everything. You know, kind of everything industrial.
It's the quote unquote golden
again.
age, though. You know.
Sure, yeah, and it's like that changed the structure where people would go to a movie just for the movie itself. They would go and maybe not concessions, but maybe there'd be like cocktails in the bar before you'd go into the theater, and then you would go into the theater and people would be like quiet, and the you know, sometimes an usher would come out and like present something, and then the film would happen, and then it would end, and you would go home. But it's like before that, you would go see films, and that would be like a large evening. You would go and you'd get your tabloids. So there, you know, before people like commonly had TVs, you would go to a film and you would see newsreels playing before, and they would play like quote unquote trailers, which essentially are just like advertisements for, you know, things happening in the neighborhood or things happening in that, you know.
It was a fucking event, man, for sure.
Yeah, right. And it's like you could go and you would literally, it would just play reel to reel back to back, and so you could watch like all the information, watch the movie, and then they would just keep playing another movie, and so you could kind of stay for as long as you wanted for like your dime or whatever. You know, you could get a lot out of it, and so it made it really popular. And then there's been dips throughout, but it's really cool that it's such an experience.
Bud.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love film. It's fun.
We love film here. That's why we talk about it at length every week, and a lot of times we'll just talk about it
hour.
even more outside of. We literally talked for like 20 minutes before this, mostly about movies.
Right.
We talked about Star Wars.
Yeah, we did. We got into the whole that universe, but it's like we definitely go over our hour, which we have now. And Travis, thank you for calling in.
Yes.
It was lovely. I talked with Travis's mother in the park the other day. I went and visited him, and like she was there hanging out, and we got to talk about this, and it was cool because I got to like not quiz her, but basically she was trying to guess, and we were breaking down who directed this movie, Spartacus, and so it was kind of fun to have her like. She was trying to guess all the directors and who starred in it and stuff. She couldn't quite remember everything, and we were telling her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, this is great." And she saw it in theaters, and I'm like, "God, dude, I need to set up like an interview with
get her on the pod."
Yeah, dude, exactly.
So did you ever find out how old Travis is? Because Travis, I don't know if you remember last episode. He insinuated you're like 65.
We did. Yeah. Sorry to if that did offend you, Travis, I do apologize, and please accept my apologies. I would never want to insult you, but he was born in 78. So
Oh,
like
okay.
I think the year after Star Wars came out.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
what he said.
that makes
So yeah. So it's like he wasn't quite. Apparently, he saw like the second or third Star Wars in theaters, but as a complete child, it was like
Yeah, that makes sense.
child. So, but
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so
Cool.
yeah.
So thanks for listening. Check out all
wait,
the stuff.
We didn't clarify what next week's movie is.
I'm about to say.
Oh.
It is. I mean, let's just say real quick. So, thank you, first of all. If anyone's listening to this, if you're new, welcome. Hope you enjoyed. If you're a return listener, thanks for coming back. We love you very much. But I just want to say how surprised and impressed we are by this week's poll. Because, the biggest poll we'd had was like 300 something votes total. And that was by far the biggest, because we usually get like between 100 and 200 maybe on average.
Yeah, and we've
which
gotten
is
300.
healthy. We've
like
gotten more
300.
300 like 70 was our biggest. Up to that. So this one we got 1,353 votes as of now, which is a fucking lot. So
Great.
Thank you. And so right now the top winner, and I have a hard time seeing it getting past, is the first Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, with 510 votes, and then the runner-ups are the Spider-Man and Jurassic Park with the same amount of votes, 283. But which is also a lot, but they're behind by like 200, so I'd be surprised.
By like 200. Yeah. I mean, and it's like Lord of the Rings.
I'm a dumb idiot, and the poll doesn't end till tomorrow again.
I know. Don't worry, bud. We'll figure it out. It'll be like 6 years in the future. You'll be like, I finally figured out to just do it.
I
Like,
did it
whatever.
last week. I did it 2 days
Or, like,
last week.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm proud of you. But, dude, we didn't even mention Lord of the Rings. I mean, I like, whatever. It's our podcast. We can go over. It's like
It's
Lord
an
of the
epic
Rings-
long movie. Of course, it's an
It
epic
is.
long podcast.
Yeah, right. I mean, we talked for like an hour 20 on Star Wars. So, but with Lord of the Rings, that we didn't even mention that in Star Wars. Like that essentially is like that's like a cultural shift of a movie that is hung on. Like people still love Lord of the Rings.
Well,
Like,
they got that new
it's
show.
the-
They got that new show coming out soon. The
a new
Rings of
show
Power
coming
or-
out, and people are freaking out about it, which
We'll see.
which is a good thing. It's
Yeah.
like people, it has its attention.
I've never been. I feel similarly about Lord of the Rings as I do about Star Wars.
Right.
Maybe it's just because I'm a negative Nelly, but I've come around a little bit on Star Wars, so I imagine I'll do. I have a better opinion overall of Lord of the Rings, I think. But
Right.
we have the same opinion, Jordan, where we're sci-fi nerds, not fantasy nerds. So we were kind. I back in the day was like, this is fine, but
Right.
it's like put it in space.
I appreciate. I know, like, yeah, to make Dune, but I
Yeah,
pretty much,
exactly.
I pretty much respect Lord of the Rings more for the fact that it didn't fully cash grab, which is like
it's cohesive. It was
didn't
told.
merchandise.
I like that it was told all as one thing, because you can
Right.
tell we're ranting now, but you could tell on the Star Wars sequels that it's like they didn't know what the fuck they were doing in the first movie. Darth Vader was never their dad when they wrote the first movie. They were never siblings. They just like added that shit after, which makes it weird and retcon.
Makes it weird. Yeah.
Yeah, so at
Anyhow,
least with
we
Lord
go
of the
listen to
Rings,
that
it's
one,
all connected. They know the ending when they made the first one. So
It's
we're
safe
watching
to
that.
assume
We're watching
Lord
that
of the
next
Rings.
week. So come join us for Lord of the Rings. Those of you who listen to Spartacus and watch Spartacus, thank you. I appreciate that.
We love you.
Check out the Reddit,
We love
Instagram,
all of our
the Patreons.
Our patrons out there are amazing. Kylie, Thomas, Landon, you guys know who you are.
You do.
And then, if
Moms.
you would like to, moms always for life. If you'd like to participate, I have some new coworkers that I try not to. I don't really like to, brag about myself, but they asked, and I was like, "Oh, I got a podcast," and I totally, I get all giddy about it and like to talk film. And a lot of people there are interested in movies, and there's like, I have a coworker whose partner is into cinematography, so I'm like, oh shit, I gotta work with them. Can make a little project. But anyhow, beyond that, if any of you guys listen from the coffee shop, what's up? You guys are great. And if you'd like to call in and rant or tell us about the movie you watched or just tell us about your life, whatever you'd like, just call in. The phone number is 801 877-613-1501. You can call. You just leave a message. It goes straight to like a Google voicemail. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
People are beautiful.
Tune in. We're going to record another podcast right after this, so tune into that race with Levi and Jordan.
Yeah, right. No, it's like foot races and like how fast we can run.
Yeah. What'd you think? What'd you think it was?
What did you think? All right. Love you guys. I got to get out of this room.
Goodbye.
Bye.